Miami won the toss, and they've elected to defer, which means they will start on defense, which is a pretty good idea considering the way they have played over the past couple of weeks at Buffalo and in Minneapolis. And away we will go in a moment on an 82-degree night in North Miami. Brad Smith will run it back. Dan Carpenter to boot it. And 2 yards in the end zone. Smith, who does so many things for this team. He can play quarterback, running back, returns kicks, plays out of the Wildcat. And here comes Sanchez right now as we meet the Jets offense.
Mark Sanchez, USC.
Sean Green, Iowa.
Tony Richardson, Auburn.
Jericho Cotchery,
NC State.
Brad Smith, Mizzou.
Dustin Keller, Purdue University. Roberto Shaw Ferguson, University of Virginia.
Matt Slauson, Nebraska.
Nick Mangold, The Ohio State University. Brandon Moore, Illinois.
Damian Woody, Boston College.
Jet fans happy to see Mangold in the game. Shoulder injury last week. They start with Tomlinson, flanked wide to the right. So he's wide to the right. They set Keller up on the right side, and right to the air they go, and it's Jericho Cotchery who makes the catch on the first play. A gain of 6 up to the 34-yard line. So Mark Sanchez did not play well at all on opening night, but last week a completely different story. Trailing by 4 at the half, and then 3 touchdowns, 21 out of 30 overall, and everybody feeling in Jets world a lot better about their second-year quarterback out of the University of Southern California. Tomlinson now in a conventional running back spot on 2nd down and 3. And here is LT, and LT runs right in to the middle. Soliai, number 96, Paul Soliai, the nose tackle, makes his presence known immediately.
Well, Paul Soliai working against Nick Mangold, who comes in here with an injured shoulder. Let's see if it has any impact on this one. I don't think so. Soliai just destroyed one of the best centers in the game on that one. And remember, he's replacing Randy Starks, who started the year as the nose tackle.
They'll move him around. Soliai, 6'4" and 355. 3rd and 4. And Sanchez fires over the middle, and that catch is made by Dustin Keller for a first down. So Mark Sanchez working the middle on the opening series of downs. It's a 16-yard gain, a first down at the 50.
Well, Dustin Keller has simply become the go-to guy now for Mark Sanchez. He runs such decisive routes. And down on the front line, you had Damian Woody working against the pass rusher. Cameron Wake on the outside. He's clearly the Dolphins' best guy getting after the quarterback.
Tomlinson. No gain, 2nd down and 10. Let's take a look at this Miami defense.
Kendall Langford, the real HU.
Paul Soliai, Utah.
Randy Starks, Maryland.
Cameron Wake, Linebacker University.
Tim Dobbins, Glencliff High.
Carlos Dansby, Auburn University.
Cole Messi, Utah.
Monte Davis, University of Illinois. Chris Clemens, Clemson University.
Jeremiah Bell, Eastern Kentucky.
Jason Allen, Muscle Shoals High School.
Talking about this game last week, I mentioned, you go back to the 72 Dolphins, the undefeated Dolphins, the no-name defense. Well, these guys, basically the current version of it, but the way they're playing, we'll know their names pretty quickly. And that pass is incomplete, intended for the fullback, John Connor. 3rd down and 10 upcoming.
You know, it's a really good decision on the part of the Dolphins to defer that opening kickoff, because I'm sure one of the reasons they wanted to do it was Braylon Edwards would get 1 fewer series. Get him out there in the first quarter. They may get 2 possessions here in the first quarter, and Braylon Edwards won't play in either.
Tony Sperano, the 3rd-year head coach of the Dolphins. 11 wins his first year, 9 wins last season. 3 wide, 6 defensive backs on 3rd down and 10. And that is caught by Brad Smith, and that's a first down. So 2 3rd down conversions. And as we said, Brad Smith, the quarterback in college, he can play running back, he can receive the ball, runs back, kicks brilliantly.
Jeremiah Bell right here fakes the blitz, is going to try and get back underneath this thing. and he just gets there late. Sanchez sees it, takes their easy completion. Nice job. That's what we saw last week out of Mark Sanchez. He just looks like he gets it now. You know, he's a year better than he was a season ago.
And now the Jets come up with their version of the Wildcat, and it's Brad Smith who will take the snap. He fakes it to Tomlinson, and then he follows Ladanian to the right side and picks up 9 yards. So a little dose of their own medicine, and the Jets run that play with some frequency, with Brad Smith making it 2nd down and 1.
Well, the one thing you're going to see, they will read this end out here, and Brad Smith's going to put the ball in the belly of LT, sees him sink down, and so he's going to take off and run. But actually, he just ran behind LT, so maybe you should have just given him the ball. But the Jets wanted to out-Wildcat the Wildcat here tonight. That was one of their stated goals by Rex Ryan.
Opening drive of the game. Tony Richardson is the fullback here, and he'll pave the way for Tomlinson, a sure Hall of Famer. Great 9 years in San Diego. Holds the NFL record for most touchdowns in a season, but he was at the end of the line, and you could see it coming in San Diego. And away they went, and they drafted Ryan Matthews, and they knew it was time for LT to leave. And one of the reasons he goes to New York is that Brian Schottenheimer had been on the staff in San Diego under his father. Marty was the head coach early in the decade, and that helped to move him to the New York area. Sean Green now replaces Tomlinson in the backfield. 1st and 10. The ball is at the 24-yard line. And here is Green, who finished last year with a bang and looked great in the playoffs. Tackled by Carlos Dansby. A new Dolphin comes over after some stellar work in Arizona through the years.
Carlos Dansby right over here, and he was their big free agent pickup. They just didn't feel like they were athletic enough at the linebacker position. Not only can Dansby come up and stop the run like that, but he's also athletic enough to drop back on those tight ends and make plays. That is the playmaking position on this Dolphins defense, and they didn't make enough a season ago.
2nd down and 9. 5.5-minute drive to this point. This is the 10th play. Pump fake, and then going deep into the corner, and it's a touchdown. Dustin Keller got position on Jeremiah Bell, and Sanchez lays it in perfectly for the touchdown. 24 yards.
One of the hardest things in the world is when you get an athletic tight end like Keller flanked out and a safety on the outside trying to cover and get the slant and go. And now you get the jump ball situation, really pass interference on the play as well. Keller hangs in there, and you figured with Braylon Edwards out, Dustin Keller would become the go-to guy, and it certainly was the case on that drive. That was pretty.
Right. Could have been a flag. Bell knew he was beaten. Nick Folk, the ex-Cowboy, to bang it through. And so for Sanchez, he picks up where he left off last week. 72 yards, 10 plays, 7-0 Jets. Miami defense, only 2 touchdowns allowed coming into this game, and then they give up 1 here on the opening drive. They've taken the ball away 4 times, but the Jets come out with a real nice script and balance as well. 5 rushes, 5 passes. Now the kickoff is taken at the 15 by Patrick Cobbs. And the Dolphin offense will take over for the first time tonight with Chad Henne starting from the 30-yard line. 9:12 to go. Opening quarter. 7-0 New York. Back in Miami, the Dolphins will take over at their own 30-yard line after the Jets go 72 yards, 10 plays. And now Chad Henne, who took over last year when Chad Pennington got hurt, finished out the year. He's the undisputed starter. He has Ronnie Brown in the backfield with him. The fake to Brown, and now Henne going deep, and they start with a bomb, and a little too deep for Brian Hartline. And Chris talking about you're going to have to take some chances downfield, and they didn't wait at all.
No, and they wanted to attack Kyle Wilson right off the bat, number 20. He's getting the start in there for Darrelle Revis, and Hartline was maybe the least anticipated guy to go down the field. You actually saw the free safety in the middle of the field go over to double cover Brandon Marshall, and that's what opened it up backside.
Henny, in the first 2 games, threw only 3 passes in the 2 games, more than 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. He starts with one here, and now he gets jostled and he gets taken down, and that's Sean Ellis who will get the sack at the 26-yard line.
Well, you're really trying to work this ball into the slot here, and I thought he had him for 1 minute. The tight end Anthony Fasano really was wide open. Von Besch usually the guy that he's trying to get to inside. He's his favorite 3rd down receiver, but it was Anthony Fasano who had a little space here. And sometimes early in the game, young quarterbacks especially tend to lock onto one receiver and not see the entire field.
Now Ricky Williams comes in the backfield on 3rd down. 3rd and 13, the fake to him. He stays in the block, then he moves out into a pattern, and that's incomplete. So a deep pass that's too deep, and then a sack, and then an incomplete pass, and the former Dolphin Jason Taylor puts the pressure that time on Henny.
Sure did. They brought Jason Taylor up inside this time and almost got there. This place would have had a strange reaction, I'm sure, if their longtime favorite Jason Taylor had come up with that early sack.
Brandon Fields to do the punting. Good deep punt, and that is going to back Kyle Wilson all the way to his 6-yard line. And the coverage is good, and they down him at the 13-yard line. Big time boot right there, 65 yards, 5-yard run back. From the 14-yard line on 1st down, Sean Green goes nowhere. And let's check in with Andrea Kramer. Andrea.
Well, Al, to clarify what you were talking about before, General Manager Mike Tannenbaum, who's in charge of all the football decisions, told me it took until 6 p.m. tonight to reach a unanimous and difficult decision amongst owner Woody Johnson, Rex Ryan, and himself. He called Edwards' benching in the first quarter a disciplinary measure that went above and beyond what other teams have done in this situation. He said he had to balance out sending a strong message to Edwards with the reality that they want to win this game.
And thus he will sit for another 7 minutes and 27 seconds at minimum. First call of the night from Jerome Boger.
False start. Offense, number 65. 5-yard penalty. Still second down.
Brandon Moore. You know, we talked about it on the pregame show, Chris, and it was my feeling that this was a little bit of an ode to the court of public opinion, because there was some thought that the Jets would sit Edwards for a series of downs, one play, a very short period of time, and they wind up with a quarter because the press brought the hammer down on them this week. 2nd and 14. And Sanchez under heat, throws, juggled, incomplete. Checked off to Keller. He couldn't hold on. Vontae Davis is there for the coverage. 3rd down and 14 and a penalty.
Yeah, it looked like Damian Woody may have gotten a jersey full.
Holding. Offense, number 67. That penalty is declined. 3rd down.
That's Damian Woody. You heard Sanchez say, what about the play clock? They'll reset it to 25.
Damian Woody is going to have his hands full against Cameron Wake. This young man out of the CFL has become the top pass rushing threat here for the Dolphins. And now you have this crowd into it, backed up in your own end zone.
So Wake, the pass rusher this year. In the past, remember Joey Porter was here last year. Jason Taylor was here for a lot of years. And now Wake is the guy to put the heat on. 3rd and 14. And they go to Green after the fake pass to the outside. Jeremiah Bell makes the tackle, and the Jets will kick.
Yeah, for Rex Ryan, I'm sure he was probably of the state of mind of the let's sit him for the opening play and get him back in here. And you know, he was pretty adamant, and that you can make a pretty good case for this too, that nobody else suspended any player for this same exact incident. Why should we? And I'm sure Woody Johnson probably had a little different view.
Here's Weatherford to kick. And this is a short floating kick that is fair caught at the 38-yard line by Devon Bess. A 43-yard boot, 7-0 Jets. As a rookie coach last year, that's what Rex Ryan's defense did. Led the NFL in fewest points allowed, fewest yards allowed, and in third down conversion by the opponents. And there is the information about the only head coach whose team led in those categories. As on first down here, Ronnie Brown, gain of 1. Speaking of that Jet D, here they are.
Sean Ellis, Tennessee.
Shonep Ohai, University of Utah.
Mike DeVito, University of Maine.
Brian Thomas, UAB.
Dave Harris, Ottawa Hills.
Bart Scott, Southeastern Jungliers.
Jason Taylor, Akron.
Kyle Wilson, Boise State.
Jim Leonard, Wisconsin.
Bradley Poole, Oklahoma.
Antonio Cromartie, Florida State.
And Cromartie, a man tonight they'll be looking at as the Dolphins come up on second down and 8, and Henne throws high and incomplete. And speaking of Cromartie, because he's going to be matched up in the absence of Revis for most of the night on Marshall, and the two are very well acquainted, having met twice a year in the AFC West. Cromartie with San Diego and Marshall with Denver.
And for the Dolphins, this is going to be the key matchup. Cromartie obviously filling in for Darrelle Revis, and Chad Henne just threw a terrible ball here. You got to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers early so they get comfortable, and he is one of the great run after the catch guys in the NFL, and certainly Cromartie knows all about him from back in the day in San Diego.
Third down and 8. Henne was 0 for his first 3. Is now 1 for 4 as the catch is made on the outside by Devon Bess. They love to go to him on third down. He's covered by Kyle Wilson, and that moves the change with Miami's first down of the night.
Well, one of the things that you have to be able to do against the Jets is handle their pressure. Here they come up inside, and really what's happening down the field now, the Jets are willing to play man coverage against Devon Bess and Brian Hartline. They are doubling Brandon Marshall. So this is the guy that if this continues, I think you're going to see Devon Bess get about 20 balls thrown to him tonight. He's pretty good.
At the 48-yard line of the Jets with under 5 minutes to go in the opening quarter. Fired over in the middle, and that pass is right on target and into the gut of Anthony Fasano, close to a first down. Let's take a look at the Miami offense.
Chad Henne, Michigan.
Ronnie Brown, Cartersville High School.
Usaka Polite, Pitt.
Brandon Marshall, wide receiver, University, Central Florida.
Brian Hartline, Ohio State University.
Anthony Fasano, Notre Dame.
Jake Long, Michigan.
Richie Incognito, University of Nebraska.
Joe Berger, Michigan Tech.
Pat McQuiston, Weaver State.
Brian Carey, the U.
That was enough for a first down. The ball is at the 37-yard line. And the ball is handed off to Ricky Williams. Still chugging along in his 10th season, plus he missed a couple along the way. Drafted by the Saints after they gave up their whole draft to get him. Mike Ditka at the helm back in '99. And still extremely effective and plays in that tandem with Ronnie Brown. And the two of them have given Miami a pretty good running game over the past couple of years.
Yeah, and it's really going to be the key tonight. Can they get something going running the football on first down? So far, they have not.
Second down and 8 from the 35-yard line. Fake to Williams, and look out from behind, and that's Jason Taylor. And you knew that sooner or later that was going to happen tonight. Well, they love him, but they don't love him tonight.
Well, believe me, he wanted to be here in Miami too. It just didn't work out. Usaka Polite, the fullback, is going to have a really tough time if he gets this matchup all night. Jason Taylor, maybe they thought because he had the bad elbow, you see the brace on there, that he wouldn't be as good, but ain't no fullback going to block that guy. I guarantee you that little punch was directed right at Bill Parcells. He thinks Parcells is the one that did not want him.
He makes no bones about it. Dolphins will take a timeout here before a 3rd and 16. Third and 16 after the Dolphins took the timeout following the Taylor sack, and that pass is knocked down at the line of scrimmage. Jim Leonard, who was trying to get blocked out of the play, got his hands up. A little skirmish develops here with Fasano going at it and Bart Scott, and it will be 4th and 16.
Tell you, immediate pressure inside here. They sunk Sean Ellis inside, and Henne had no choice. He had to try and get that thing out of there. I tell you, the one thing that the Dolphins can't run it on first down. They're going to see all those pressures all night long. They have to get better on 1st and 2nd down running the ball, or it's going to be a long night.
You got a pass also knocked down by a guy who was 5 feet 8. And now Leonard goes back to accept the kick and fair catches it at the 10-yard line. The boot there by Fields. So which Jets team do we see? Which Sanchez do we see? Jets drafted him in the 1st round 2 years ago from USC. 9-8. There he is. When he plays well, they normally win. When he doesn't play well, they normally lose, and those numbers would illustrate that.
But you know, he's done well in the moment, and when you see a young player play his best football in the playoffs, that's a pretty good sign, you know. And last year he was tremendous. He wasn't that good during the regular season, but he stepped up his game when it mattered most.
From the 10-yard line, LaDainian Tomlinson is the running back. And that is caught, and that is Keller, who scored the game's only touchdown, who picks up 9. Well, with Sanchez, I mean, he took a lot of heat. You know, it's funny, he told us last night there was so much pressure on the Jets opening night after Hard Knocks and the whole thing and a lot of the bombast during the preseason. He said, I felt like we were 0-10 when we were 0-1.
Yeah, but all they did was lose to the Ravens, and that's not all bad. So now it's not so good against the Ravens, which a lot of quarterbacks look like that, and then pretty good last week against the Patriots. So competition doesn't get a whole lot stiffer than that.
2nd and 2. And Tomlinson looking like the old LT. Brandon Moore, the guard, paved the way for him, and that's a 1st down for the Jets.
And you know, LT the last couple of years had some pretty good injuries out there. He had a toe injury on opening day that bothered him the entire year. He had a high ankle sprain last year, and so he really felt like that it wasn't so much him, it was some of the injuries, and by the time that he got back healthy again, San Diego had sort of transformed themselves into a passing team.
From the 28-yard line on 1st down. Tomlinson stays in the block this time, and wide open and catching him at the 45 and getting into Dolphin territory before he's knocked out of bounds is Keller, who was so big last week with 7 catches, including a touchdown against New England. He has a touchdown tonight and a 31-yard game here.
Well, they try and bring a little pressure inside, but they go play action and kind of screw that up. LT went one way. Maybe that's what messed everybody up. But I tell you, if you're going to play the Jets, you better find out where Dustin Keller is. He is the #1 threat, and so far he's been running free down the secondary.
Sanchez loves play action. He used it more than any starting quarterback in the league last year, and this time they jumped. Looked like the Jets jumped first. Jerome Boger will make it official one way or another.
There are 2 fouls on the play. False start, offense, number 81. False start, offense, number 38. 5-yard penalty, still 1st down.
That's Keller and Connor both. You share a sack, you share a penalty, I guess. Sanchez, 29% of his passes, so 3 out of every 10, roughly. Highest in the NFL. And of course, they were so good running the ball last year. And one of the reasons, obviously, you use play action, you have a great run game, and you have backs that the defense has to account for. You don't have a good run game, why use play action? 1st and 15 with the ball at the 46-yard line. Nothing doing there for Tomlinson. Stopped by Dansby. LaDainian now 5 carries, 14 yards, and that should take us all the way to the end of the first quarter. So an opening drive for the Jets, a touchdown. Edwards is now free to come back into the game since we are going to the second quarter. There he is, like a fighter in his corner, getting ready to come out. End of one, 7-0 New York Jets. And Sunday Night Football from Miami continues after these messages. In Miami, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Andrea Kramer starting the second quarter. So Edwards comes in after a team-imposed one-quarter benching. So he misses 17 plays. They hardly missed him because they went down the field for a touchdown. They gained 131 yards, 97 through the air in the first quarter without him. Second and 15, he splits wide to the right on his first play. And the Dolphins pointing to Matt Slauson, the Jets guard.
False start. Offense, number 68. 5-yard penalty. Still second down.
Bolger concurs, and that'll make it second down and 20.
And Slauson, the guy replacing Alan Faneca, and I think most of the Jets would admit this offensive line isn't where they were at the end of last season. They think they'll get there, but they were pretty darn good at the end of the year.
Play action over the middle, and he led his man a little too much, Jericho Cotchery, but a flag comes in after the play. Chris Clemens making contact with him, and we'll see about that hit and whether that drew the flag.
That's a no-doubter. You cannot go to the head and neck area either with your head or a forearm or a shoulder pad. The ball was clearly past the receiver.
Personal foul. Hit to the head of the receiver. Defense, number 30. 15-yard penalty. First down.
So instead of 3rd and 20, it's a first down.
It's not going to be hard to see. Cotchery comes in there, and there you go. Now, I know they sometimes ask a lot of defensive players. You know, he's kind of coming in there, but the rule is the rule. We've seen enough of the concussions. The NFL has taken a stand, and it's like hits on the quarterback. You may not like it, but that is the rule.
First down at the 35-yard line after the penalty. Tomlinson swings to the outside, and LaDainian to the 14-yard line. Dustin Keller, who's already had a big night receiving, throws a nice block there to spring LT. That's a gain of 22.
Well, anytime you just get the defense outflanked, and here they are out to the right, and I think that was Braylon Edwards that came in there and got a big-time block on Quentin Moses, and that's really what set the edge. So he doesn't do anything catching the ball, but this block set him up for about a 20-yard gain. Pretty good.
And Keller screening out 2 guys as well as Sean Green is back in the game as the running back from the 15, and he'll take it and he'll cut it back, and that's Bell who's able to make the tackle as he secures him after a gain of 2 yards.
Then you find it kind of interesting the way they use these backs. Sean Green, LaDainian Tomlinson, each of them have 21 separate plays designed just for them. But then it's like a contest. Whoever comes out of the first half with the hot hand, Schottenheimer goes with them for the second half. And so it's almost a competition here in the first half.
Again, this is a team leading the league in rushing last year, thanks in good measure to Thomas Jones. They let him go. They elevated Green to near start status, and now you've got Tomlinson as well. And now you got a pass thrown for a touchdown to Dustin Keller. And Sanchez jumping for joy as he goes to Keller for 2 touchdowns tonight, and he's already caught 5 passes for 91 yards.
Bobby Carpenter right here is going to try and go get Dustin Keller. Gets his back turned and just can't make that play. It is the great mismatch that the Jets have, and Mark Sanchez How much more accurate do you want that one to be? That was perfect.
Nick Folk to bank through the 14th point. Sanchez is 7 out of 10 for 109 yards, and the Jets have come in roaring. 13:34 left in the opening half. 14-0 Jets. Going deep into the corner, and Sanchez lays it in perfectly for the touchdown.
Esto es Domingo de Fútbol Americano.
Jets in Nueva York on top. 14-0, and the kickoff is fielded at the goal line. This is Patrick Cobbs to the 24-yard line. This was built as Joe Robbie Stadium. For many years, the Dolphins played at the old Orange Bowl. They've knocked that down, and they're building a new baseball stadium there for the Marlins. The Marlins play here. You can see the outline there. They normally play at this part of the season, and there in the front row is Stephen Ross, who's owned the team for a couple of years. Bought it from Wayne Huizinga, and Williams takes it to the 30. But they have sodded the infield portion, because you have the baseball infield here until the end of the baseball season, but they've sodded it. The Marlins do have some games remaining here. I think Pittsburgh comes in, the Pirates this weekend, and that's the part of the field, and I think almost everybody's pretty happy about that tonight.
Man, the Dolphins we're talking about, I guess they played a preseason game here in the slop. It was raining like crazy, and that infield dirt was, nobody could do anything in that, so the players were overjoyed.
Second down and 4. And that pass is caught up at the 40-yard line, and that's Brandon Marshall falling it in. Marshall holds the NFL record most catches in the game. Did that against Indy when he was with Denver with 21.
Just a little fade stop on the outside, and one of the things the Dolphins felt like they might be able to take advantage of was when Cromartie was playing in off coverage. They think that in bump and run, he's a big, strong, physical guy. He plays much better up there. So they're going to try and do a few things tonight to try and get Brandon Marshall free and get Cromartie backed off.
And he 3 out of 7 to 33 yards. Hand the ball off, and Ricky Williams out of Texas to the 45-yard line. 2 games on the road. The Dolphins, first team since the 37 Bears to win their first 2 on the road when scoring no more than 15 points in either game. Went to Buffalo, and then last week key plays involved sacks of Brett Favre, one resulting in a touchdown, and away they came with a victory.
Well, they're going to need at least 15 tonight.
Yep.
A little defense somewhere along the way.
And this is Henning looking left all the way, and that pass is caught at the 38-yard line. That's a great grab by Devon Best. Looking back, coverage was good by the rookie Kyle Wilson. Did he get his feet in is the question. Up in the air he goes.
I didn't think so at the time, but they're going to try and hustle the line of scrimmage, and that's a good idea. Snap it, and they're going to get away with it.
They will get away with it. He didn't get the second foot down. And then the ball is loose. Williams leaves the ball on the ground. The Jets certainly have it. The Dolphins certainly have it. And all that matters is what one of the zebras tells us. So they snap it to get the playoff, and it's Miami. So the Jets were certain they had it. Miami runs a quick play. They ran that play so that the Jets couldn't challenge the best catch. They probably would have won the challenge. Then they fumble and get away with a Williams fumble, and he comes up with a football.
And now I think what they're ruling here is sort of a simultaneous possession thing. If it looks like both the offense and the defense has it, they're going to give it to the offensive side. Howard Green's going to get the ball out of there, and somehow Ricky Williams is going to get it back. Sony Bua.
Let's go back to the best play. He's up in the air, got to get both feet down. Everybody knows that, and he doesn't.
Well, you know, if your knee gets down or your foreleg gets down, but I didn't think that happened either. You know, that would have been a catch.
It did not. 2nd down and 7. And the pass, and they go that same play to Bess. And this time he's clearly in. So they call that same play. That's 3 catches now for Bess. 3rd-year man out of Hawaii, and a guy who really excels on 3rd down. That time on 1st down, a gain of 17.
Well, this is why they're getting the bump and run coverage, because they're bringing all kinds of pressure off the edge. And if you're going to bring that kind of pressure, that means man-to-man coverage on the outside. And they are going after the rookie, Kyle Wilson. They felt like if they could get him intimidated a little bit early on, maybe some double moves, they might be able to set him up for some big plays.
Wildcat, Henne stays in the game wide right. Marshall is in motion. Brown hands the ball to Marshall, coming to the near side, and the Jets sniffed that one out perfectly. They can run a lot of variations on it, with Brown normally taking the snap. Sometimes he has Williams in the backfield. That time he had Marshall in the backfield. Sometimes Henne goes out. That time Henne stayed in, and Sperano says, yuck.
Well, the key is right over here, because if you can set this edge, you can take away this sort of sudden sweep that comes around the outside. Usually that is Ricky Williams, but the read there is usually by Ronnie Brown, and if he read that one, he read it incorrectly.
And now Brown again on 2nd down and 11. They run the Wildcat about 11% of the time, and Brown this time the fake handoff, and he will run it with a flag in at the end of the play to the 15-yard line. Boger's crew getting a little busier here.
Personal foul, crackback block, offense, number 80. 15-yard penalty, replay, 2nd down.
Anthony Fasano, tight end.
And Anthony Fasano is flanked out, and anytime you are coming back to block a defender inside you, you cannot go low on him. He's going to come down here and cut him, and that is the correct call. That is a crackback below the waist, and it's not a very good idea by Anthony Fasano, which really put the damper on this drive.
That is a textbook crackback.
Yeah. Illegal crackback. 2nd
and 22. And the
first charge,
Jets
timeout, New York.
take a defensive timeout. 14-0 New York. Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony, who are minority owners of the team, Hispanic Heritage Month, and they own a small sliver of the Dolphins. Here tonight, 2nd down and 22 after the timeout by New York, and Henne off the play fake goes deep down the right sideline, and that one is out of bounds, and a flag is thrown. Brian Hartline was there, and Kyle Wilson is going to get flagged for interference, and I thought the receiver had no chance to catch it in bounds.
Yeah, but you have to turn your head around. Kyle Wilson here just ran right through Hartline.
Pass interference, defense, number 20. Spotted the foul, automatic, 1st down.
Terrell Revis is being missed right now. You get the outside receiver, and right here you're going to see he turns his back. Hartline is smart enough to come back a little bit towards the ball, and then when Wilson basically runs him over, that is a flag. It just turns around a little bit at the end, but still the contact was made before the ball got there.
Right.
And really Hartline did a great job of keeping his feet in bounds, so he was still eligible to catch the ball.
Ball to the 3-yard line. Henne throwing quickly. Touchdown, Fasano. Anthony Fasano atoning for the penalty on the crackback block, and the Dolphins get back into it. 9 plays, 76 yards to make it 14-6 going on 7.
Fasano's just going to run right at Eric Smith right here and basically get rebound position. You all played basketball. Just go down there and post up and get the ball. That's a heck of a recovery after that penalty.
Dan Carpenter for the point after. Flags on the field. Tight ends have caught all 3 touchdowns tonight.
Field, defense. The 5-yard penalty will be carried over and enforced on the kickoff.
Boy, did the Dolphins need that drive against that Jet defense. 14-7 New York. Well, the New York area teams, the last championships won. The Yankees, of course, last year, the Mets in '86, the unforgettable World Series. The hockey teams have all won, the Devils, the Rangers, and the Islanders. The Nets won the ABA title, the Knicks won the NBA championship in '73. The Giants won the Super Bowl in 2007, so the Jets at the bottom of that list. You have to go all the way back to 1968. You all remember that. It happened here in Miami. Super Bowl III, one of the most important games in the involvement in the history of the National Football League. And of course, major expectations this season. To the 3-yard line. Brad Smith is going to run it back, and a great run back by Smith, and he'll finally get taken down in Miami territory. And that is Roberto Wallace, a San Diego State rookie, who finally catches up with him. 54 yards.
Brad Smith's a pretty remarkable guy. He is. He was one of those kids that threw for 8,000 yards in college and ran for 4,000. And they run the Wildcat with him and returns kicks. And John Connor, the Terminator, as we call him, down the field, making a key block.
That sets him up at the 43-yard line. Sanchez, hot hand at the start tonight, 7 out of 9 for 109 yards and those 2 touchdown passes to Keller, but he doesn't like what he sees here, and he opts for a timeout. Talking about the famed and fabled Super Bowl III, you all remember that scene where Joe Namath guaranteed a victory, surrounded by the media in Miami Beach, and away they went. 16-7. That was so important in so many ways because the AFL and the NFL were merging. Everybody thought the NFL would, and the NFL won the first 2 Super Bowls handily. Green Bay over Kansas City, and then Green Bay knocking off Oakland, and then all of a sudden the Jets brought the AFL as a co-equal along with the NFL.
Yeah, looking at Joe, he kind of looked like you sitting around the pool out here by the
Used
hotel.
to
be. You know, but it was so interesting that whole game and the guarantee, and people in the NFL laughed at Joe Namath, like, get out of here, like it was just a big joke, and then they came in and pulled it off.
No joke here as they come up with their version of the Wildcat again, and that Sean Green is going to take the snap, and he's going to run it to the right side, and he gets knocked down. A shoulder tackle by the cornerback Jason Allen, who had 2 picks of Brett Favre last week.
You know, it's so interesting because Brad Smith is the guy that runs their version of the Wildcat, and they're going to just put him in motion. And so now Sean Green is going to have an extra blocker sitting out there, but you know, the Dolphins know a thing or two about the Wildcat. They've probably defensed it in practice a few times, and you know, Rex Ryan went into Brian Schottenheimer and really wanted him to out-Wildcat the Wildcat tonight. And now the Jets have problem with too many guys in the huddle. They're going to have to call timeout again.
They'll take another timeout here. They had a hard time getting personnel in after that, and that means that the Jets will have used all of their timeouts.
Well, when you start moving your quarterback around and putting in other guys, LT didn't know exactly who was supposed to come in and come out. But you cannot have 12 guys in the huddle at the same time, and it looked like the Jets had about 12 going on 15.
Brian Schottenheimer, a holdover when Rex Ryan came in. Ryan had been on Eric Mangini's staff. There's some question as to whether he would stay or not. It looked like he might go to Detroit with Jim Schwartz, but he stayed with Rex. Telling us last night he loves it. He just loves the environment. Of course, Brian, the son of Marty Schottenheimer. 2nd down and 10 at the 43-yard line. Crescendo rising from the crowd. And Tomlinson gets tackled at the 41-yard line by Carlos Dansby.
I tell you, Carlos Dansby's made a lot of plays so far in this ball game. Coming all the way across your picture here. Can't really understand exactly what happened, how Arizona let him get out of there, but he was clearly one of the key guys there and has become the unquestioned leader here along with Jeremiah Bell.
Big play last week stuffing Adrian Peterson on what could have been a important fourth quarter touchdown in Minnesota. 3rd down and 8 here. And that is knocked down. So that Dolphin defense that's given up those 2 touchdowns tonight suddenly resurgent after Brad Smith had set the Jets up in real good field position. Kendall Langford knocked that one down, 4th down.
Yeah, and that was a sloppy possession that time by the Jets. You know, things were sailing along for them. All of a sudden the Dolphins answer with a touchdown, and they came back and just made too many mistakes on that drive, and now the momentum is shifting to the team that's used to this kind of heat.
Jets not averse to a fake punt, but not here. They ran 4 of them last year with success. And a floating kick is fair caught by Devon Best at the 15-yard line. And the Dolphins get the ball back halfway through the 2nd quarter with the Jets up by a touchdown. A most interesting man is Tony Sperano. First things first, he's not being South Beach cool wearing sunglasses. When he was 17, he was working at a fast food restaurant. He was cleaning the hot oil bin. The line exploded. He got grease in both eyes. It burned the cornea of one eye. He had patches on his eyes for weeks. And right now, obviously, to this day, he's very light sensitive. And that is Brandon Marshall. So Tony wears those sunglasses at night. His office is very dark, and it all goes back to that accident when he was 17 years old.
Yeah, he had to wear a patch on his eyes for 26 days. He said on the 28th day they asked him to go pitch a baseball game, and he gave up 22 runs. So he remembers it all pretty well. But he is also a little svelte looking now. He lost a lot of weight, 279 down to 208. He's been working hard at that. Good for him.
Well, he's had knee operations, and the doctor said, if you don't lose weight, we're going to replace the knee. And that was the motivation to lose 70 pounds. Ronnie Brown is the back now. And a before and after shot here. Rex Ryan's lost some weight as well, but there is Sperano at 279. And there he is, ready to get in the ring tonight at 209. And speaking of losing weight, old Rex, and there he was at 348. And still a super heavyweight, but at least he's down at 285.
I tell you, here you have to watch for Lusaka Polite, the fullback, to get the ball. He has been one of the most successful guys converting 3rd and 1 in the National Football League. He's on the right.
Always makes it. Here he goes again. And it was preordained in a way. Lusaka Polite on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1, anything but genteel first down.
It's a pretty good idea to run behind one of the best offensive linemen in football too, and that would be Jake Long. Watch the way he drives everybody down inside here. He's just going to wash everybody completely out of the way, and that's the play they like. And so Polite gets some credit, but Richie Incognito and Jake Long get a little bit more.
Part of that Dallas connection. Parcells was there. Sperano was a coach under him. Polite was there. And a few other guys came over as well as Henny throws, and that'll be caught up at the 39-yard line. Brandon Marshall with tight coverage, working against Cromartie that time, and that's a first down.
Well, we talked about it, and here you have Cromartie in off coverage. The Dolphins feel like this is a huge advantage for them. So now Brandon Marshall is going to get the ball almost automatically anytime, and then working back inside Jake Long against Vernon Golston. That would be a mismatch.
Long, the #1 overall pick in the draft out of Michigan in 08, and Henny was his teammate at Michigan. Henny picked in the next round. And this is Brown, and the Jets will bottle up that gap. Nothing happening right there. In fact, Sperano owes the job to Parcells, because Parcells came here to resurrect the franchise when Wayne Huizenga had it. Talked about Steve Ross buying the team before, but Parcells has been the major domo. Sperano was telling us the other night Parcells got mad at him during a preseason game when they were in Dallas and chewed him out. And I said, did you ever think that Bill would eventually make you a head coach in the National Football League? He said, farthest thing from my mind at that point.
Sperano put his hand up to Bill Parcells like, don't talk to me, and Bill almost killed him.
Here's Williams. Yet one guy you don't give the Heisman to is Bill Parcells.
Yeah, he said, I was sitting there calling plays, and in my headset, I was trying to communicate with the guys upstairs, and Bill came over and was screaming at me, and I put my hand up. He said, I couldn't help it. I'm Italian. That's the way I talk. And Bill looked at me like, don't you ever put your hand up to me. Said he caught him at the top of the tunnel, and it was not pleasant.
3rd and 5. The ball is at the 45-yard line. Patrick Cobbs comes into the game in the backfield. Marshall setting up inside. Henny looking that way, and then he works his way to the outside and gets to the 48-yard line. On a 3rd and 5, he's covered there by Jim Leonard, and that'll move the chains.
I tell you, that's a great job by Chad Henne right there. It looked like blitz was coming from all these guys, but Chad Henne saw that they didn't come. They all backed out, so now he stands there, enjoys the protection, reads out the defense, and makes a big pass play. That is an evolving quarterback. That's a play he probably would not have made last year.
3 minutes to halftime from the 48 now. Off the play fake. That buys time. Henny slides away, finds the open man. This time it's Devon Best, and Best takes the ball to the 34-yard line for another Dolphin first down.
Typically what the Jets do is they bring pressure to one side or the other. This time it came over here to the left side. And one thing that Chad Henne learned from watching Tom Brady is you sort of slide away from that protection, and all of a sudden you have another second or two to look down the field. That time he did that, found Devon Best, picked up another first down. Henny's getting hot.
Now 9 and a 13 after an 0 for 3 start. And under pressure again, he gets it away. A dangerous pass, and they get away with it. Mike DeVito got free the end. Pass intended for Polite. It'll be second down.
Well, we talked so much about Jake Long, but Jason Taylor practiced against him every day when they were here together. Jason Taylor has great respect for him, but that time Jake Long took advantage. On the other side, that was Sean Ellis, who read that little flaring back that came out of the backfield, and he came up with an almost interception.
Boo Taylor, as he comes off the field, replaced by Jamal Westerman, number 55. Second down and 10. Rolling right, throwing back against the grain, and that's David Harris, who says, I've seen that play on film, or something like that. Ronnie Brown gets tackled, and the 2-minute warning comes about. 2 minutes to the half. 14-7 Jets.
Need to try and set yourself up for at least a field goal here, so a 10-yard gain would work.
3rd and 16, and they will not get the first down, but they will set themselves up for a field goal as Marshall makes the catch, and they pick up about 13 of those 16. And let's go back to the Harris tackle on Brown.
Well, you know, we talked about defenseless receivers, but David Harris, he just smells this thing out all the way. And Ronnie Brown had 2 feet down and was looking at Harris. He probably wishes he were looking at something else, but manages to hold on. But there was clearly helmet-to-helmet contact there. Now decision time.
So Dolphins are going to let the clock run down and take a timeout here because the Jets have no timeouts when they get the ball back. And Chad Henne says, I'll take the TO right here.
They go out and name him Brandon Marshall. Pretty good.
South Florida on a 82-degree night. Sanchez has had a good first half with 2 touchdown passes, and now Dan Carpenter will try to turn this into a 4-point game, a 45-yard field goal.
In pregame warm-up, this was dead into the wind. I don't know if it's shifted since then or not.
Brandon Fields will hold it. Spot is good, and the kick is hooking, but stays inside the left upright. Little bit of a draw, but it is good. With 62 seconds remaining in the opening half, it is now 14-10, New York.
Well, now for the Jets, this game has certainly turned. A 14-0 lead now is 14-10, and I'm just going to say this again. I played at the University of Florida, and it is hot. And you see a lot of teams from the north that used to come down and play us at Florida in the second half. They weren't quite the same, so we'll keep an eye on it.
Even at night, the sun might be down, but the humidity is up. 1 yard line. Brad Smith had a big run back the last time, but not this time. Out of bounds he goes. QB comparison. Sanchez started hot. Henne did not, but Henne now with decent numbers. 111 yards, and Sanchez with 2 touchdown passes to Keller.
Well, we talked about John Connor and his nickname, the Terminator, and he's 2 for 2 on special teams. Pretty impressive stuff.
First down, 28-yard line. Jets do not have a timeout. Sanchez will throw, and the tackle is made on Keller up at the 35-yard line by Sean Smith. Taken down to 40 seconds on 2nd and 3. And Sanchez fires over the middle, and that pass is incomplete. Again, he goes to Keller, who's been his main man. 6 catches tonight, 98 yards, and a pair of scores.
That was a good job that time by Chris Clemens, the young safety that they really kind of took a chance on this year, let Jabril Wilson go. And it looked like he was going to interfere at the time. He broke so well on the ball, but he held up and ended up not getting the penalty.
3rd and 3. And Sanchez will swing it to the outside, and Tomlinson trying to get the first down and get out of bounds, but he does not get out of bounds. And now Sanchez says, let's spike it. It is enough for the first down, but the clock keeps moving, and now Sanchez will throw it into the ground before a 2nd down play.
And Al, I think the biggest difference that LaDainian Tomlinson is going to make on this team this year is coming out of the backfield and making plays just like that. He's an excellent receiver. He understands what defenses are trying to do in coverage, and he's a great route runner. And he's been teaching Sean Green a lot about it. I talked to Sean Green. He said, you can't believe what this guy knows about the passing game.
2nd and 10. Waylon Edwards splits wide to the left. He has not caught a ball in the 2nd quarter. Sat out the 1st. And Sanchez is going to go deep downfield. It's a little underthrown and batted away. Trying to get it to David Clowney, who's got a lot of speed, and Jason Allen right there with him. 3rd down.
And I'm sure when Dolphins fans saw Jason Allen running beside Clowney, they maybe held their breath. But probably the biggest difference for me so far this season has been this Dolphins secondary. Much maligned. Jason Allen was a corner. They didn't like him there. They moved him to safety, didn't like him there. Brought him back. Mike Nolan said, let's just leave him at corner and see what happens. And he had a couple of picks last week. Vontae Davis playing well on the other side, had an interception as well. The secondary much improved.
3rd and 10, another Hail Mary in all likelihood coming if he has some time. Instead he throws it to the outside, and the tackle is made in bounds, and it is not. Getting out of bounds with 2 seconds is Clowney. And that's going to take the ball to the 38-yard line. So if they want to try a field goal, it would be about 56 yards. And that is what they are going to do.
And really poor tackling that time by the Dolphins. No way that Clowney should have been able to get out of bounds on the end of this one. And I saw Nick Folk make kicks from this distance in pregame. If the wind's still blowing the way that it was, he will have the wind at his back for this one.
Kicked his way out of Dallas last year, winds up with the Jets, and now you got, and if this is against the Jets, it's going to turn a 56-yarder into a 61-yarder.
False start. Offense, number 70. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
53 yards, the longest of his career. Mike DeVito right there, number he's 70 or 75. Robert Turner, 75. He's the guy. I think he called 70. It's Turner.
Wow, how bad is that? Now you've got 61.
Weatherford to hold it. And that one is deflected at the line of scrimmage. And that'll roll to a halt. And unless Leon Lett is here, that's going to be the end of the half. 14-10 is our halftime score. Jets up by 4. And now Act 2, Sun Life Stadium, Miami, Florida. Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth, Andrea Kramer, part of Hispanic Heritage Month. And we're so designated our involvement with the scoreboard tonight. We think you can figure it out in any language.
Well, you would think. You'd also be able to figure out it's a pretty good game.
It is a good game.
A couple of young quarterbacks who've been putting on a good show against really good defenses.
Miami's going to get the ball. They were down by 14. It's now a 4-point game. They won the toss and deferred, so they get the kick here as Nick Folk sends it down to the 8-yard line, and Patrick Cobbs will bring it back out to the 28. Henny and company setting up shop there, and we go to Andrea Kramer. Andrea.
Well, Al, Rex Ryan told me that they're having movement problems due to the noise. We did see that they had that penalty at the end of the first half. I said, what do you tell your team about that? He said, just focus. As for the Dolphins scoring 10 unanswered points, Tony Sperano told me that they were able to get some advantageous looks with the Wildcat. You'll see much more of that. And that Henny was able to make some throws that show his development. Brandon Marshall got an IV. He will be back.
All right, they'll begin here. Thank you, Andrea, on a pass to the near side, and that's caught by Brian Hartline for a gain of about 6 yards. First half numbers after Hartline makes his first grab. It was all New York in the first quarter, and then the Dolphins with a very good second quarter. And still the yardage figures, 203 for the Jets and 139. Neither team has turned the ball over. Neither of these quarterbacks, by the way, in 2.5 games this season, has thrown an interception. Toss to Williams. And Ricky is able to pull out to the 38-yard line. Cromartie comes up to make the tackle. First down for Miami.
You know, for Chad Henne, he started that half 0 for 3 and then finished it 11 for 13, 111 yards and a touchdown. And I think the big thing that happened for him is they finally got their running game going. If you remember early on, they were running for 1 yard, 2 yard on first down. And then they started getting outside with guys like Anthony Fasano getting blocks and Brandon Marshall getting blocks and sort of stretched that defense a bit.
Out of the eye at the 38-yard line. And Williams loses the ball. The ball gets loose. Was he down is the question. The Jets have come up with a football at the 43-yard line. So Ricky, who got away with a fumble because he recovered his own fumble earlier in the game, and now the question is going to be, Sperano, of course, is going to hear from the guys upstairs as they take a look at the tape as to whether or not his knee was down. That's going to be the whole issue here.
It's going to be very close.
His elbow is down, the knee is down, the ball is obscured at that point.
You cannot overturn it based on that, though, because you couldn't see it. Elbow down, that play is dead right there.
Right, so that's
Dolphins going to get it back.
And to get it back, they're going to have to challenge, and Sperano gets the word from upstairs. They saw what you saw, and he'll throw the flag, and Jerome Boger will go under the hood, and appears to be pretty clear on the replay.
Miami is challenging the rule on the field of a fumble.
All right, coach's challenge early in the third. Miami figures to get the ball back. nothing you'd find in a book about anatomy, but one elbow equals one knee in the National Football League. And you'll see right here that Williams will have possession of it as the left elbow goes down. Good shot right there, perfect shot. Elbow down, ball is secured, and that's going to be enough for Miami to keep the football.
The Dolphins can thank our cameraman later. That was a picture perfect shot, and it saved Ricky Williams because some of the other angles it was tough to tell.
Right, if it was obscured, remember the call on the field was a fumble, so they need to see something to overturn that call. If everything's obscured, the Jets would have the football.
And for Ricky Williams, he needs to start holding on to the football. He's got a couple tonight, had one last week, and when you have two good backs, sometimes you don't get back in the game.
Costly one last week that led to a Minnesota touchdown. And Sanchez can just stay on the bench because I think the Jets know as well as everybody in the crowd, now that they've seen it, which way this is going to go.
Well, you would think, but now they're probably trying to figure out exactly where to mark the ball. It wouldn't be at the point of the recovery if it went forward. It would be at the point of the fumble.
And they'll put it right down there at
about the 42,
yep.
Maybe 40. Just across the 42.
Yeah, move it back about a yard and a half maybe. If HBO was doing this game, would they make it the Speranos against Hard Knocks?
After reviewing the play, the runner is down by contact at the 42-yard line. Second down, Miami. Miami will not be charged a team timeout.
We knew that.
I think if they were doing this, they would have edited a lot of that sequence right there.
Yes, they would have.
God, how long did that take?
Rex blew out the bleep button on that series.
Oh, man.
We're here all week, by the way, folks. We're working the lounge at the Motel 6 in Boynton Beach.
I think Tony Dungy straightened him out a little bit, though, on some of that language, didn't he?
Sort of. 2nd and 6 with the ball at the 42-yard line. And Henny's going to float one to the sideline, and adjusting on it was Brandon Marshall, and he had to come back for it. Cromartie is there with the coverage. 3rd down.
Well, once again, the Jets, everybody up. They're just going to show it. They have faith in Cromartie, who did such an amazing job on Randy Moss in the second half last week. Another jump ball, and Cromartie was able to make the play there. You know, it's not often that you can say somebody outplayed Darrelle Revis, but with the hamstring issues that Revis had, Cromartie really did a much better job on Moss than Revis did.
3rd down and 6. Good clean pocket, and then Henny takes advantage of that. And we've been talking about Devon Best all night as a guy they love to go to on 3rd down.
I'll tell you, sometimes left tackles have to be like heavyweight fighters. Watch this punch by Jake Long. Dong, just get him back off the thing, and Jason Taylor came back with a right hook of his own. We talked about it early on, but Brandon Marshall is getting double coverage on plays where they are not in that single matchup, and so that meant Devon Best was going to get a lot of action, and he has.
From the 48-yard line. Play action. Time again for him. Over the middle. Hits Marshall to the 30-yard line. So 2 real good clean pockets for Henny on the last 2 plays. Leonard makes the tackle. 1st down.
And they wanted to get Antonio Cromartie off, so that time they go to motion to this stack formation. Now Cromartie's off of Brandon Marshall, which frees him up to get in behind the linebacker and make a big play. Chad Henne saw it all the way. Got exactly what they were looking for by that motion.
From the 30. And a flag before the snap. So that'll back him up.
Illegal snap. Offense, number 67. 5-yard penalty. Still 1st down.
Henny's curve in many ways, sort of like Sanchez, took over last year. He, of course, took over because of the injury to Pennington. Chad, 25 years old. He was spectacular as a freshman at Michigan. Played in that wild Rose Bowl game where Texas beat him by a point. Vince Young was the other quarterback. Grew up in Pennsylvania. Started dating his current wife, who he married about 2 months ago when they were 14 years old back in Pennsylvania. Both went to Michigan. And newlyweds now as the pass is dropped by Brandon Marshall here. Second down.
Well, once again, they put Brandon Marshall in motion and got exactly what they wanted, and Brandon didn't hang on to it. They had the screen set up, and Sperano said, we like that. Just didn't work out. But, you know, for Chad Henne, how nice is it that he had Jake Long as his protector at Michigan and then gets drafted by the same team coming out in the NFL? I mean, Jake Long right now is probably, if he's not the standard, he's close to it.
When you see Henne on the bench, you know what that means. Ronnie Brown will take the direct snap. And he'll run it, but not very far. Tripped up just across the line of scrimmage, and it will be third down and long.
Well, one of the things that you see out of the Wildcat is they're trying to play with numbers here. There's 7 guys right there in your picture, and actually there's one more out here. And the Wildcat is supposed to offset negative numbers. In other words, your quarterback typically goes back and simply hands the ball off and watches the play. But when you go into that Wildcat formation, now you have somebody to block everybody, and it evens those numbers up.
Third and 15. And that pass is going to be caught very close to a first down by Brian Hartline. Great grab, stays in bounds, got position on the corner. Dwight Lowry, officials check it out, and it appears to be a first down, and it is.
I tell you, the Dolphins have just done a great job of picking everything up. Watch how the Jets here, they're going to overload one side only and sort of drop everybody else out. But because they have 2 backs in the backfield, they're able to see where that pressure is coming from, and their backs actually make the adjustment. So setting back about 3 yards, and that vision has really helped them so far in this protection.
Wildcat again. With Williams in motion, now Brown will spin to the outside, and Cromartie is right there. But Brown is able to get inside position on Cromartie, who could have stopped him for a 2-yard gain, and Ronnie turns it into a 5-yard gain.
Well, in this play, and this is more of the true Wildcat with the motion coming across, you're going to see Ronnie Brown read the end on the left side. That end goes crashing down, so he's going to fake it and then run it back this way, where he's supposed to. Well, then it ended up that Ron Lestrade was supposed to come get that trap block, and he missed it.
Penny out again, Wildcat in. Cromartie couldn't wrap him up, and that cost the Jets defense about 3 yards. Fake give, Brown again. And on this, the second anniversary of the unveiling of the Miami Wildcat, Vernon Golston makes the tackle.
This time, Osaka Plate's going to come down here and get the block. And so now he can still go down inside and make that read. There they go, fake it. They have Fasano coming around. Also pull Richie incognito. They've got the full repertoire going now.
Third and inches. Miami's had the ball for the whole quarter. Off the fake on third and inches. Over the middle, the catch is made. He's working his way to the end zone. Touchdown, Brandon Marshall.
Shocked everybody in the house. Watch these linebackers. Third and inches. They're flying. They're thinking run. Wildcat looking, whatever. And here comes Brandon Marshall. Sit down. And when you talk to the Jets, they think he is the best run after the catch receiver in the game today.
And that's 17 consecutive points with Carpenter's extra point here. Big time comeback against, remember, the best defense in the league last season. Miami for the first time tonight on top by 3. Good deep kick, and they're going to run it out. Brad Smith from about 4 yards in, and he'll make that pay off. Instead of the 20-yard line, the Jets will start from the 33 as they get the football for the first time in the second half. 8:41 left in the third. Miami up by a field goal. Miami, home of the Dolphins, home of the Marlins, home of the Panthers, and of course home of the Heat and LeBron James. 33-yard line. Here are the Jets for the first time on offense in the half. And that pass caught. That's the first catch tonight for Edwards, and he spins away. And his first catch of the night turns out to be a game-changing touchdown. 67 yards. Spins away from the coverage, and off he goes.
And Jason Allen is on that infield part that they have resodded. And a lot of times when you get on that stuff, it will simply slide right out from underneath you. That time Jason Allen tried to make a cut, fell down, and nobody was there. A little sweet redemption for Braylon Edwards.
Nick Folk. Allen called out, sliding back into first. And Edwards had to sit out. The team imposed penalty in the first quarter, and here he is with his first catch of the night to give the Jets the lead again.
Right down here, and you can sort of see the discoloration on the infield. That's where they did some sodding. They had the infield dirt in there. See all that sort of lighter color? And as soon as he plants his feet, Jason Allen, and tries to come back and make that tackle, his feet were gone. And the Jets answer quickly. As long as he keeps his feet, that's a fairly routine tackle. And instead, Braylon Edwards gets the monkey off his back. Now you know why Rex Ryan was fighting so hard to keep Braylon Edwards around for at least 3 quarters tonight.
Short-lived lead, 18 seconds. For the Dolphins on top. Let's check in with Andrea.
Well, guys, a quick turnaround for that Jet defense that was pretty winded after that 6-minute-plus drive by Miami. For one, Sione Boha had a wet towel draped over his head, and he was taking oxygen, but they're ready to go back now.
And they will come back with 8.5 minutes remaining in the third quarter.
It is an interesting point. It was great that they scored the touchdown, but now defensively, you could see them sucking wind on the sideline. They're right back out there again.
A lot better coming back after a touchdown than a fumble. Patrick Cobbs to run it back, and Cobbs taken down at the 22-yard line. Bought. 2 young guys in the AFC East, and some of the numbers right there. But Henne had a lot of experience in Michigan, those 45 college starts. Sanchez was just 16. Talked about that Henne game against Texas in the Rose Bowl. Ironically, in that game, Henne threw 3 touchdown passes to Braylon Edwards. And one of the Jets, that's before the snap even, Westerman is down on the turf. Injury timeout. All right, so there is Westerman. Chris, if we had to testify under oath, what was that all about?
Well, you know, Rex Ryan's been around for a little while, and I'm not sure. Maybe that was perfectly legit, but it was a convenient injury for the Jets.
It certainly was. Bought him a lot of time here. And now Henne on first down throws, and that is caught by Hartline. And he takes it to the 48-yard line of the Jets. And go back to the kickoff coverage and take a look if you see any possibility of an injury here.
Right over here, you take a look. There he goes. He goes down, and the cramp begins. And so they get to buy a little time for their defense. They rubbed him a little bit on the sideline, and he's back up miraculously. We're happy to see it.
Hung jury. 48-yard line, first down. Batted in the air and incomplete. Boa almost was able to come up with it, and McQuiston was able to push him out of the way to make sure that wasn't intercepted.
All right, here's Sione Bua, and he's going against Pat McQuiston, who really has done a nice job tonight, filling in for the rookie John Jerry, who had a stomach ailment all week long, but McQuiston has stepped in nicely.
Another Dallas connection, played with Parcells, under Parcells and Sperano. For the Cowboys, second down and 10. And Henny lays it out there, and the catch is going to be made, but out of bounds. Until Marshall knew that he couldn't stay in and hang on to it by his body language at the end of the play. Third down.
Well, to me, Cromartie won that battle early because he ends up forcing Brandon Marshall so far to the sideline. There's really nowhere to get that football in there. He tried to do a little one-handed job, but sometimes you win the battle late, and sometimes you win it at the line of scrimmage. And that time, Cromartie, we told you how good he was at the bump and run, won it at the line of scrimmage.
Nice grab, but neither foot in. Third down and 10. 48-yard line out of the gun. Pressure up the middle on Henny. He goes deep into double coverage, and the catch is made by Marshall at the 8-yard line. Jim Leonard and Antonio Cromartie were both there, and Marshall using that 6'4" frame for a 40-yard reception.
Well, Dan Henning knew that he was going to get pressure. Here it comes, so he moves the pocket. Maximum protect. They roll away. Brandon Marshall goes the other way and gets a jump ball against his safety, Jim Leonard. And that was a nicely set up move there by Brandon Marshall. That time he beat Cromartie cleanly, and nobody does it as well as this guy going up and getting the football. Now you know why they paid the big bucks to get him. What a great play.
6'4" against the 5'8" safety, come up with a wildcat. Brown to the 5-yard line. Also credit Henny on that play. You have a flag here. Henny really hung in because Bar Scott was coming straight up the middle and gave him a shot.
Holding, offense, number 79, 10-yard penalty, replay, first down.
McQuiston.
I put the kiss of death on him too.
Yeah.
He ends up pulling out, and really totally unnecessarily here. He's going to end up coming out and pulling over here, and right at the last second is just going to grab the defender. Ronnie Brown's already gone. Well, maybe not. He was coming back in there. That was James Ihedipo. But you could see him just hook him at the last second, and that was it. I'd rather take my chances with Ihedipo making that tackle on Ronnie Brown.
First down goal from the 17-yard line. And he protected well, and the catch made by Hartline. He takes it to the 2. Second and goal. Eric Smith with the tackle.
Well, for me, one of the major storylines of this game is going to be, yes, Brandon Marshall's the superstar, but the other receivers on this team have stepped up to take just enough pressure off of Brandon Marshall that they have been able to go away from him and still be successful. That was the question mark coming in. Could they have that kind of success? And they have.
Second down and goal. 5.5 left in the quarter. Marshall and Best both wide left. And Henny floats one to the right, and the fade is caught by Hartline, but out of bounds. Smith covering. You know, one thing, Chris, we should point out, the Dolphins match up pretty well against the Jets, and they proved that last year. They beat them twice and scored a lot of points against them.
Yeah, but they had 2 kickoff returns and a fumble return by Jason Taylor. And wasn't that the game that I think the Dolphins had like 105 yards of offense and scored 30 or something ridiculous like that.
But in that other game, it was Henny probably playing the best game of his young career. Third and goal. And that is almost picked off. Boy, Marshall stopped, and Cromartie was there, and it's fourth down.
Antonio Cromartie just brilliantly done here. He's going to jam Brandon Marshall inside, didn't let him go, was going to give him the fade route. And really, Brandon Marshall saved an interception there because Cromartie had that one played all the way. So big defensive stand at the end of that. Should be able to maintain the lead short of a fake.
Right. Extra point distance field goal, 20 yards. Dan Carpenter. And that'll make it a 1-point game. These two bitter AFC East rivals locked in a good one on Sunday Night Football. 21-20 Jets. All in the family. Buddy Ryan, the father of Rex Ryan and Marty Schottenheimer, the father of Brian Schottenheimer. So it's all in the lineage. And by the way, Rex wanted us to wish his dad, who's recovering from surgery in Kentucky, good health, and we'll pass that along to Buddy, who I'm sure is looking in tonight.
Old Buddy, he's proud of those two boys, isn't he? Sort of passed along that defense, and Rex learned that Bears defense. Matter of fact, they were in it down on the goal line, and that's what contributed to that stop.
And then the kickoff goes out of bounds, of all things, after they make it a 1-point game, to give the Jets the ball up at the 40-yard line. So Dan Carpenter will incur the wrath.
Kicking team. The ball will be placed 30 yards from the free kick spot. First down.
Of Tony Sperano. Tony Sperano, the son of James Gandolfini. No, not really. But it's so, you know, he loves with Tony Soprano and the whole thing. He's even done some spoofs about that. Good guy, good sense of humor.
He really was.
Yeah.
Good guy.
From the 40-yard line on first down. Sanchez tossed to the outside and staying in bounds. That's Cockery.
Well, the big weapon in the first half was obviously Dustin Keller. And when Braylon Edwards did not play in the first quarter, I think the Dolphins should have anticipated that a little bit more, because without question, we're starting to see a relationship growing between Mark Sanchez and Dustin Keller. And he's just so athletic. He's really much more of a wideout. He just happens to be in a tight end's body.
Had 7 catches for him last week. And now Tomlinson, who started out as a key part of their first 2 drives and then has been pretty silent since, and part of that reason is the Jets have barely had the ball.
Well, and we just talked about Dustin Keller and what a good receiver he is. Now watch him seal down against Kendall Langford. And one thing you always see in a Bill Parcells style of defense is some stud out there playing that left defensive end like Kendall Langford. They do not ever want you running off tackle to that side.
Second and a short 2 from the 39-yard line. Tomlinson again, and this time he's going to get wrapped up. And that's Cameron Wake making sure he seals that corner and doesn't let him get around.
And I think the Dolphins have jumped into a 4-3 defense. The one thing that Mike Nolan was really concerned about was the running game. They did not want to allow the Jets to get going. They didn't care so much about the passing game. But boy, I tell you, this Cameron Wake has made a huge impression on me. They thought they could run at him, but you're not going to run outside at him.
Played in Canada, Defensive Player of the Year in the Canadian Football League a couple of years back. 3rd down and 4. And that is batted and is making an impression on everybody, this Cameron Wake. He goes to the other side and bats it down, and it's 4th and 4.
I don't think Damian Woody can believe this. He had Cameron Wake cut, but Wake just fought him off and came down. I mean, that's an incredible play to be able to fight that thing off and still jump and make that stop. That's why they cut those defensive ends. How athletic was that?
Weatherford's kick. And Miami's going to let it go, and the Jets will be able to down the ball at the 5-yard line. Good boot right there. Miami takes over at the 5. 3:11 left in the quarter. New York by 1. Well, Rivas Island is quarantined tonight. Rivas out with a hamstring pull, so it's been Cromartie and Marshall tonight with 7 catches and a touchdown.
And it's been quite a battle. It really has been between two really good players. Now, I know it looks like Marshall's doing a lot, but the Jets are asking Cromartie to do even more, to take on one of the best receivers in the game in a lot of one-on-one situations. But even when he got double coverage, he made the big play down the field. But Cromartie's had his fair share of wins out there as well. This is a defense predicated upon one corner, at least one corner, being able to play man-to-man, bump and run all over the field. That's been Terrell Rivas. He was as good as any secondary guy I've ever seen play the game a season ago. And now Cromartie is being asked to step in there. But when they get both those guys healthy, they are going to be something.
That note was very interesting. Last year, only one receiver had a 100-yard day against the Jets, and now they've already allowed 3 to have it in 3 weeks. And Henny will throw to the outside, and wide open there is Hartline, who's having himself a pretty good night as well. Out to the 23-yard line, he goes, tackled there by Leonard.
Well, now you start to see the single coverage on the outside. Brandon Marshall in the slot's going to get the double coverage, as he has for the most part. Cromartie just shows no attention whatsoever to Hartline on the outside and opens it up. But how about Dan Henning calling plays? This is a guy, they didn't throw very many passes at all those first 2 games, and come out throwing it off your own end zone.
Wildcat here, the ball is at the 24-yard line. Brown fakes the run, and the left-hander throws, and the coverage is there as the secondary stays back. Marshall is deep downfield, and the pass is incomplete.
Well, they were trying to make it look like the old direct snap run. Little Tim Tebow looking kind of play here. Everything but the jump pass. Sets up in the pocket, and like a quarterback took a shot. Luckily, he has a strong enough arm to throw that one out of there. Cromartie did not bite.
Just defensive work to the play, and there he is, front row, Dan Henning. Long-time coach, one-time head coach at Washington, Atlanta. The pass here is incomplete. Crowd wanted a flag. Fasano was the intended receiver. It'll simply go to 3rd down and 10.
Yeah, but it was interesting talking to Dan Henning about Brandon Marshall, and he compared him to Steve Smith. He said both those guys are so emotional. You just have to sometimes calm them down. You know, they have a tendency to panic if they don't get the ball on every single play, and it's like, come on, man, we're getting you the ball. Hang in there. We're going to do the best we can, but if they're going to cover you, we're going to throw it to somebody else. Now, trust me.
Carolina's Steve Smith.
Right.
3rd down and 10 from the 24. And Henny, and the pass is incomplete. Fasano gets there, and along with Kyle Wilson, just as the ball arrived in Fasano's hands, 4th down and 10.
And they made a little adjustment here. They've been using Kyle Wilson inside on Anthony Fasano and taking him away. You know, it was Wilson in the first half that was really getting picked on by these wide receivers, so they switch it, move Wilson inside, and he's been much better.
And that kick gets blocked at the 16-yard line. Eric Smith was coming through on the kick by Brandon Fields, and they break through Mike Westhoff's special teams unit with a huge play here at the end of the 3rd quarter.
It's going to be a little loop back inside here, and that's what got him. Eric Walden did not anticipate that one coming at him. Took the outside guy. Smith jumped inside. Got it.
Eric Smith also blocked one last year against New England. So the ball at the 17, and here goes Green. And Green with some very tough running, riding Bell out of bounds after a gain of close to 6 yards.
Boy, this Sean Green can finish some runs, and there's Mike Westhoff. What a great job he's done over the years. He's smiling, having a good time. Watch Sean Green finish this run. He is a stud. And I really thought the championship game against Indy turned last season when he got hurt in the second half, the Jets really just didn't have anybody to take his place. Boy, he is a stud running downhill.
Gain of 7, 2nd and 3. Green remains in with a minute and a half to go in the quarter. Green again, cutting it back. And chugs his way to the 4-yard line, and the flag comes in at the end of the play.
Tripping offense, number 17. 10-yard penalty, replay, 2nd down.
That is Braylon Edwards.
Well, Braylon Edwards was really trying to cut off on the backside against Cameron Wake, but watch what he does at the end of this play. He throws his leg in the air, and that is a trip. And that is really expensive right there for a Jets offense that was on a roll.
Leg whip, trip. Either way, it's going to get a flag. Minute and 13 and counting down. It's 2nd down and 13 now. Technically, it's 2nd down and 9. From the spot of the foul, the ball is at the 16-yard line, and Sanchez throws, and that is caught, and now it's Edwards with another flag. Edwards, for the moment, takes it to the 5, but there's a flag down all the way back at the 23-yard line. And it's going to be against the Jets as well.
Holding offense, number 68. 10-yard penalty, replay, 2nd down.
Left guard Matt Slauson.
You're going to see working right in here. And Slauson really did a pretty decent job initially, but then when Randy Stark started to get away, he grabbed him and may well have saved, because the hit was actually pretty low on the quarterback, and they protect them as well.
8 flags against the Jets, who were whistled 20 times in the first 2 weeks. 2nd and 19. Sanchez dumps it to Tomlinson, and what a great tackle that is. That's Dansby, and that's why he was so good in Arizona. Helped lead him to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. He fights off a blocker and is able to stop him from gaining another 6 or 7 yards.
Boy, the Dolphins just look so much more athletic on the defensive side now. They really do. Here's Dansby right here. Watch this. He is just dead blocked and still made the tackle on one of the most athletic backs in the game in LaDainian Tomlinson.
Brandon Moore couldn't take care of him. That's the end of the 3rd quarter. Good one. Jets 21, Dolphins 20, and Sunday Night Football from Miami resumes after these messages. We start the 4th quarter. Al Michaels with Chris Collinsworth and Andrea Kramer. At one point, the Jets led 14-0. The Dolphins then took the lead. The Jets came back to retake the lead. And on 3rd and 15, the Jets start with a wildcat. Direct snap going to Brad Smith. Will keep it, and a one-time quarterback at the University of Missouri breaks a tackle, seeks that 1st down marker, and they have picked it up. Jeremiah Bell could not stop him.
Well, this is what happens when you get a quarterback from college running this thing. The key is right over here, Cameron Wake. When he ends up taking the fake, jumping inside, Brad Smith's going to pull it out. Now you've got the option working, and Jeremiah Bell can't get him on the ground. That is a huge missed tackle, and yet another big play by Brad Smith.
16 yards on a 3rd and 15 with Tomlinson and Green lined up in that backfield in that formation with Smith. Sean Green goes next to nowhere here. Tackled by Quentin Moses.
Well, and the Dolphins know a thing or two about goal line stands. They had a big one last week. That time Tim Dobbins, who came over from the Chargers, was dead in the middle of it. That game last week came down to this kind of a situation, and it may again, but really, no matter what happens, it's still going to be a 1-touchdown game.
2nd and goal. Sanchez surveying, good time, throws, tipped incomplete. Plenty of time in the pocket. A couple of guys off and then try to hit Clowney over the middle, and the defense was good. 3rd and goal.
Yeah, that was actually the 3rd read. You could see Sanchez going through every one of his progressions. Looks left, looks right, didn't like it, came back late, and was probably a little lucky. Anytime you come back that late over the middle, that is his check down, but you better make sure that guys like Jeremiah Bell aren't flying.
Bell missed an earlier tackle, and then he bats that one away to save a possible touchdown. 3rd and goal. Sanchez, he's going to take off. He's mobile, and he scores. Flag down. For the moment, a Jets touchdown. Taken back. Wow. I think he called it on Slauson.
Matt Slauson, number 68, replacing Alan Faneca, is going to get both arms wrapped around the outside. And it looks like that's what they're going to call that one little pull on Randy Starks. Oh boy. Rex Ryan can't believe it. I tell you, big guys get tired in this kind of humidity late. Rex Ryan is not even a little bit happy.
2nd hold on this series for Slauson. That's 29 penalties in 2 3/4 games for the Jets. 3rd and goal. Tomlinson. And the game with a short gain, and that'll set up a short field goal.
Yeah, and I know that's a frustrating call for a lot of fans, but the last thing in the world you want to do is throw a pick down here. Certainly a field goal looks awfully good on the board, force the Dolphins to get a touchdown to take the lead back on you.
It's a drive to forget for Slauson. Here's Folk now. 30-yard attempt to make it a 4-point game. Weatherford puts it down, and Folk's kick is good. A little more than 2 minutes into the 4th quarter. Jets 24, Dolphins 20. Here's the run back now by Patrick Cobbs to the 27-yard line, and go back to the reaction after the Slauson penalty on the last drive, Chris.
Well, you're going to see Matt Slauson, and I was right in here. Watch in particular right there as he grabs that shoulder pad, and that's what ends up getting called. When Randy Starks sort of started that way and then jerked back, that's what drew the foul and drew the ire of Rex Ryan.
The 28-yard line. Brown, a couple of nice dance steps, and he tangles his way out for a gain of 8. This game is very important in the AFC East, not only a divisional game. If Miami goes to 3-0 and the Jets go to 1-2, in effect, as Ryan pointed out last night, it would be a 2.5 game lead. But if the Jets win and they're 2-1, and Miami goes to 2-1, in effect, the Jets would have a half game lead. I say a half because you're going to play each team in your division twice, and you will have won at least the first head-to-head. Penny. And that's caught by Marshall. So it just talks to the importance of the game, Chris, and Rex Ryan has that math dead right.
He really does. And I tell you, Dan Henning, you've got to give the man credit. He is just, he's got the Jets off balance, you know, and remember, this is a Jets team that has not allowed 15 points or more in their last 8 regular season games, and so far the Dolphins with 20 and on the move again.
At the 50-yard line. Dan Henning's been calling plays for a long time. He started his coaching career at Florida State. 68. I think I mentioned he was the head coach at Washington. He was the assistant head coach under Joe Gibbs, but he was the head coach. There he is at San Diego and in Atlanta, Carolina from 02 through 06. With the Jets, quarterbacks coach there, 98 through 2000 with Parcells and Al Groh.
And he's really kind of a defensive coordinator's dream because he's never going to put the defense in a bad position, doesn't take a lot of risks, going to run the football. He and Mike Nolan working well together.
2nd and 9. Brown almost brings 3, and then he's taken down from behind. Brian Thomas makes the tackle, tripped him up a little short of the first down, setting up a 3rd and 2.
Well, we've got Corey Proctor in the ball game now for the Dolphins as well, but Vernon Carey right out here also with a good block. This is just straight ahead play here. We're going through all the former Cowboys playing that right guard position. They got Aquiston, and he's out now, and Corey Proctor's in there, so doesn't matter. John Jerry missed this one because of the stomach illness. They've gotten it done.
3rd and 2. Henny under pressure, going to throw deep and incomplete. The pressure was put on. Hartline, the intended receiver, and that's Howard Green coming in. 2nd unit defensive lineman from LSU putting the heat on.
Well, that time Richie Incognito here looks inside, and it cost him because they end up with 2 guys coming off the edge, and Jake Long's the only one there to block him. So he makes the right decision. Go ahead and take the inside guy, but it was always too late at that point. We couldn't get back in there.
Fields, whose last kick was blocked, sends this one inside the 5, and good coverage there by the Dolphins to pin the Jets. Roberto Wallace down there to down it. A tick under 10 minutes to go in a 4-point game. So the Jets now at the 5-yard line, up by 4. And start on the ground. 2 yards for LaDainian Tomlinson. You just can't call him LT now that he's playing in New York. I'm sorry, Chris. It works in San Diego.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work in Gotham.
You know, this is it's been such a fun game to watch. 2 great defenses, and neither one of these young quarterbacks have blinked yet. You know, they both have been almost perfect, but now we're down to that point in the game where one mistake could swing everything. So now you have to be careful.
That block punt almost did, but the Dolphins holding the Jets to a field goal. And now Sanchez is going to air it out. And with double coverage, the pass is incomplete. Intended for Edwards, and Bell and Jason Allen made sure he didn't have an opportunity. 3rd and 8.
It was such a strange route there by Braylon Edwards. You know, when you get bump and run coverage, you see Jason Allen, he'll sort of turn his back or look at the receiver, and it was like it was never full speed until the very end. If he had really taken off with that one, I'm not sure he thought he had a chance to get the ball and wasn't really going for it. He might have been there.
3rd and 8. Corner blitz. And it's Allen who picked off 2 last week. Coming up with the ball, taking it to the 5-yard line. Vontae Davis came in on a corner blitz, forcing the issue. Sanchez goes to the other side, and Jason Allen with his 3rd pick in the last 2 games.
Well, there it was. Finally, somebody blinks, and Mike Nolan dials up the pressure here. He's going to come with a blitz off the left slot, and it's just a zone defense. So really, Jason Allen didn't have to worry about anybody getting behind him. He had safety help, and Sanchez just missed. Threw it high. Oh, that one may be incomplete.
Oh, yep.
There we go. Oh, Rex got that red flag, and he's pointing at it right now.
It's out there. Rex made 2 good challenges last week. Well, Voger's mic is not working, but you know what he's going to look at. Did he or didn't he? Under the hood he goes. Hits the ground. Rex Ryan, the master lately of the interception challenge. Last week he made 2 challenges. Both worked. One turning an incomplete pass into an interception. The other an interception into an incomplete pass. And he will, unless we're crazy, win this challenge here. And that's going to take the ball back to the 7-yard line. And the Jets will have it with a 4th down and 8.
Yeah, and what the pressure that came from a corner blitz on the outside. Vontae Davis, and probably the Jets wide receiver split saved Mark Sanchez here, because he was only a step away. Good job by Davis pulling off of that one, but that's clearly on the ground.
Rex ready to go to 6 out of 9, way above the league average at 39% for overturning challenges. But the good news for Miami is that they're going to get the ball back in what might be pretty decent field position, because the Jets are going to have Weatherford kick out of the end zone. They're changing out, well, the delay is they're changing out the referee's mic.
Kind of a big call here. Like everybody to hear it.
Here's an incomplete pass. Ball hit the ground prior to interception. It'll be 4th and 8 on the 7-yard line. Jets are not charged a team timeout.
Sounds like a feed from Mongolia, but the crowd understands it.
Well, very close for Jason Allen. Yeah, he knew. That tip probably kept him from making a clean play on it. Well, this is setting up for a pretty good finish here, isn't it?
You bet.
And a pretty significant game, too. I mean, it's way too early to say how important it is. But these divisional games, they add up down the line.
So Weatherford to boot it out of the end zone. Devon Bess positions himself at midfield and has to back up. Good deep kick. Bess from the 32-yard line, and a decent run back, an 18-yard return back to the 50-yard line after a 61-yard boot. In this rivalry, the AFC Championship in '82, 14-0. That overtime game with the Jets winning 51-45 in '86. Remember Marino faking the spike, faked the clocking of the ball. We were there for that game in October of 2000 that ended at 1:17 in the morning in overtime. 40-37, the Jets won it. The crowd left and then came back from the parking lot. I swear. About 20,000 of them anyway. From the 50-yard line, Henne throws, and that pass is incomplete, intended for Brian Hartline.
Yeah, I tell you, you know the kind of confidence that Dan Henning has in his young quarterback, at least for tonight. Here they go with a spread look, empty backfield, and against the New York Jets and all their blitz looks, you better do that on first down, because now that you're 2nd and 10, you're liable to see anything.
Henne 36 passes tonight. He threw only 15 as they relied on the ground game last week in that Minnesota win. To the outside, and this goes to Lusaka Polite, and they hit the fullback for the first time tonight. And Lusaka Polite, another one of those old Dallas guys, that Dallas connection with Parcells and Sperano, with a big 14-yard gain.
Well, one of the Jets, maybe it was Drew Coleman, I couldn't see exactly, just fell down on the tackle. It looked like Polite was just going to be willing to take this 5-yard play, and then somebody just tripped over their own feet there. I think that was Drew Coleman, and ended up giving up the first down.
Wildcat. 8.5 to go. Ronnie Brown will take the snap. Here comes Williams. They fake it to him, come back the other way, and that's Patrick Cobbs, and the Jets smelled that one out absolutely perfectly. Hedebo, James Hedebo, number 44, is the man who did enough film study last week. Loss of 6.
Well, right here on the end of the line of scrimmage, he saw it all the way. Sometimes you can out-trick yourself. They went unbalanced that time, an extra offensive lineman off to the right-hand side, and my guess is the percentage of runs to the right was overwhelming, and they tried to come with a little counter off of it, and it blew up.
Second down and 16. Four-man rush. Pass is incomplete. Third and 16.
Boy, Jason Taylor came with a big-time bull rush on that one. Went right through Vernon Carey. He has had a game. He came out fired up and ready to go for this one against his old team. Little move, and anytime you get a speed guy like Jason Taylor, you got to play that speed, and then they lower their shoulder and give you that bull rush, and he almost got there.
Could have drawn a face mask penalty as well. Third down and 16.
Big time pressure.
And Marshall, and he can't get up. He has to go to the ground, and Cromartie ends the play at the 32-yard line. And now in comes the field goal unit for a 49-yard attempt.
Nice job by Losoka Polite coming across the formation here and gave Henny just enough time to get this thing off. But this was a shoelace away from a touchdown. If Cromartie doesn't get him on the ground there was nobody left on that half of the field. He could have run in backwards.
Dolphins trying to get the right people out. It's going to be a 50-yard attempt for Dan Carpenter. Trying to make it a one-point game. And that kick is perfect. 6:42 left in regulation. The Jets lead 1. Miami, Florida. Late Sunday night, one-point game. Carpenter's kick will be downed in the end zone by Smith. Mark Sanchez tonight with 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah, and he's been good. He got away with one on that last throw, but throughout the course of the evening, even under pressure, he has known when to take his shots and has taken full advantage. Dustin Keller with a huge night tonight, making plays, and Braylon Edwards, after sitting out the first quarter, came back to make a few himself. And now it is pressure on time, and really what the Jets would love more than anything else at this point is to get their running game going. Try and bleed this clock a little bit.
Green is the running back. And Connor in is the fullback. And they give it to Green, and he follows Connor. And he earns 5 yards. Some tough running. Kendall Langford makes the stop. Second down and 5.
Tim Dobbins that time just overran the play just a bit, but I can guarantee you with Rex Ryan over there, they are sitting there talking about, and Brian Schottenheimer, because we just want to just pound this football. You can remember some of the, when he was wired in some of those playoff games. Let's play some Jets football now. Let's pound this thing out. We don't want to give it back to them.
Second down and 5. Well, they're going to go to the air. He checks it off underneath. It's Tomlinson, and that's a first down. So mixing it up on second down. Second and 5. Of course, they can now begin to use as much of the play clock as they can.
Yeah, and Schottenheimer has told Mark Sanchez a shot called is not necessarily a shot taken. So just because I call something down the field, don't forget about number 21. LaDainian Tomlinson's pretty good coming out as a receiver. Take that and let him go pick up the first down for you.
Hall of Fame check down guy from the 33-yard line. Green back in. Fake to him. Give it to Smith. Smith with room on the outside. Smith picks up a first down. And he is finally forced out of bounds near midfield. So valuable. Brad Smith.
Well, Randy Starks, who really has played defensive end so much, you're going to see him shoot straight down the line here this year, but he really started as a nose tackle, so it probably was not something he was thinking about, that reverse coming around, and that time he got cut down inside and gave up a big play.
Those are the ball at the 50. Under 5 minutes now to play. Looking ahead each team with all of its timeouts. Again, the play fake. Sanchez. And this time it goes to Tomlinson, but too low. It's incomplete. It'll be 2nd down and 10.
Well, it would have been a dangerous throw over the middle, and you could see Sanchez almost thinking about Brian Schottenheimer in his head, going, just because I call this doesn't mean you have to throw it. A lot of coverage in the middle of the field, 2 defenders around his receiver, so he just checks it down to LT. Just missed the throw.
Second and 10. Oh, and he threw it right into the hands of Kendall Langford. Langford will be seeing that in his dreams for a week.
Well, this is essentially just a shovel pass here. They're going to try and get everybody out in front, sort of a little screen, and Sanchez couldn't figure out a way to get it over Langford. He sort of just hesitated and almost threw a pick. You could, oh boy, Sanchez going, I can't believe that ball ever left my hand. Not only did he throw it to him, he threw it softly to him. Nerves starting to be a factor now.
Green and Tomlinson both in the backfield. Shotgun, play clock all the way down. 3rd and 10. And Sanchez throws, and that is caught in a huge catch and a huge conversion to Braylon Edwards on a 3rd and 10 to the 31-yard line.
This is absolutely unbelievable they got this in here. Jason Allen has help over the top. No reason to let anything short come underneath him. That is a huge mistake. As a defensive coordinator, you're saying, I called the perfect play there. My guy has to take away that underneath throw. And there's Damian Woody working against Cameron Wake, and he's done a good job on him. Poor play by Jason Allen.
And that's exactly what Mike Nolan has to be thinking right now. And now this is Green. And Green gets tackled at the 25-yard line and comes up a little gimpy.
Well, it's not so bad, though, this time around when Sean Green goes out and you bring in a future Hall of Famer. Boy, what a drive the Jets are putting together here. And you know, sometimes you have to get lucky, Alan. Sanchez got lucky. He made a huge mistake, lofting that ball into Kendall Langford's arms, dropped it, and got away with it.
And they're chewing up the clock on their way down the field. This is the 8th play of the drive with a little over 3 to go. And Tomlinson turns the corner inside the 10, and Tomlinson takes it to the 4, where it'll be 1st down and goal.
Well, for all the good things that Cameron Wake has done, he has been pinned a few times by Dustin Keller, and that was a big one right there. Keller is going to come in motion and go back out again, and going to end up getting this hook block against Cameron Wake. The Jets felt like they could run at Wake. They felt like they had to help in pass protection against him, but he gave up a big one there.
1st and goal. They're going to compel Miami to start using their timeouts on defense here. They'll take the play clock all the way down to 1. They give it to Tomlinson. He'll take it to the 3-yard line. And the Dolphins will spend a timeout here. And it will be 2nd down and goal.
Let's go back to that big miss by Jason Allen on the Braylon Edwards catch. Right back here, he's going to have safety help. So all he has to do is run underneath Braylon Edwards. There's no reason. You don't have to play anything high. You have help back there. Double coverage. Here's the safety right back here. He's turning and facing the receiver. Anything deep down the field he's got, don't worry about it. Do not let him catch anything underneath you. Big time mistake.
Second down and goal. Do you think about Keller here? No receptions in the second half. Big first half. Good game last week.
How much do you trust your young quarterback here?
Right, or do you run the ball and make Miami use another timeout? Rolling, looking, throwing, incomplete. Intended for Keller. He had Keller and Edwards in that same neighborhood.
Remember what Mark Sanchez was telling us last night? He basically said, you know what, the best play I made all week last week was the one right before the end of the half. We had a field goal set up, and I saw my guy, and I almost pulled the trigger, and I just didn't. I threw it out of bounds, and we kicked a field goal, and you can see the thought process working in the maturity now in Mark Sanchez.
Third and goal. Tomlinson in the backfield.
Jason Allen one-on-one with Braylon Edwards.
Fade to the corner of the end zone, and it is pass interference because he never turned around and looked at it. Allen getting right into the face of Edwards.
It's the right call. It's the right call.
Got to look for the ball.
Defense, number 32. Ball will be placed at the 1 yard line. First down.
Never turned around.
Braylon Edwards here at the tail end of this play turns and goes right back through Jason Allen. If he didn't do that, he wouldn't have got this call. But watch him jump back into Allen, who's not looking. Pass interference. Correct call. Absolutely the correct call.
So it's first and goal from the 1. And Tomlinson, and he will be knocked back shy of the goal line. And a free timeout comes here with a 2-minute warning. So a 1-point game. Miami has 2 timeouts remaining with 120 seconds left in regulation. Jets 24, Dolphins 23. If you are the Dolphins, one of the things you have to think about is, do you let the Jets walk into the end zone to score a touchdown? It's still going to be a 1-possession game with 8 points. You're still going to need a touchdown. If you don't, you take your timeouts, you leave yourself with next to nothing, and the Jets kick a field goal, you're still going to need a touchdown.
Well, and Rex Ryan is now challenging something.
Miami is challenging the rule of the field of 12 men on the field against the defense.
There was a defender that ran off the field late, and he didn't get all the way off, but it was close. Is that Wake?
Yes, it's
Cameron Wake coming off. Let's see when the snap occurs. Yeah.
I think he's off. And this comes with Tomlinson.
And the key to this would be it would go back to first down.
Exactly right. There's nothing. He's not going to gain a touchdown. He's going to gain about an inch. But the key is it goes back to first down. And then it's almost a certainty that Miami has to let the Jets try to score. But the Jets could, play it the other way too, and just, take a couple of kneel downs, make Miami use its timeouts, and then kick a field goal.
Well, remember, out of bounds is essentially when you step on the line. And did Wake get his foot down on the ground at the time he's going to hit the line there, and the snap took place already. Whew. I mean, I don't know if they're officiating it that closely or not, but now that you throw it into a challenge situation, perhaps they do. Pretty good call, though, by Rex Ryan to challenge that one. And if he wins this challenge, I agree with you, Al. I think you turn it over, let him score, and then try and score a touchdown with 2 timeouts in 2 minutes and get the 2-point conversion.
not a lot for him to lose here. The only thing he would lose is a timeout. Here it is again. He gets to the sideline.
But that snap's taken.
That's right there. It's very close.
That's close. You know, and in some ways, the penalty ended up being better than the touchdown to Braylon Edwards, because it put the ball back on the 1, and now it's going to allow the Jets to do whatever they want to do here as far as running some extra time off this clock.
You know, I'm wondering if, well, just a thought here. The Jets get a touchdown, puts them up by 7, kicks the extra point. It's still a 1-possession game. Would Ryan go for 2? I mean, who knows? I mean, Rex can do anything. It's just a thought.
Yeah, I think they would probably take an 8-point lead and be happy.
I think that I would too, because then you'd still make them score a touchdown and get a 2-point conversion. Boga ready to make his call.
Remember, it has to be conclusive.
After reviewing the play, the rule on the field stands. The Jets are charged their first charge team timeout.
All right, so you can challenge. Remember, no challenges in the last 2 minutes, but since that play took place on the front side of the 2-minute warning, it was challengeable. Really, next to nothing to lose. The only possible downside would be if somehow Miami were to take the lead, and the Jets would be -1 timeout. Just got there.
Yep. And now it's Rex Ryan that has the interesting decision. I don't think you can fool around here, though, and not try to score. You know, you want that 8-point lead. So, but he would have the option if he chose to. We'll see how he plays it.
2nd down and goal. Tomlinson and Richardson, the fullback, and LaDainian will go into the end zone for the touchdown. So LaDainian, Tomlinson, and short of a goal line stand, which would have taken a lot of time off the clock, and Miami's last 2 timeouts, not the worst thing in the world. They're still going to have to go all the way down the field, and at least they're going to have 2 timeouts. And Nick Folk comes in for the extra point.
Well, you see all these offensive linemen on the hard slant here, all going right. And Nick Mangold not only buried the first guy, but he also got Tim Dobbins just enough to get LT in.
8-point game as Nick Folk boots it through. So it's 31-23 in a game with a lot more points than people thought, with 2 really good defenses. 54 up on the board and a 1-possession game.
Army to the right, please, sir. And they all went that way, and LT's done that a few times in his career, hasn't he?
154 career touchdowns for Tomlinson. Only Jerry Rice and Emmitt Smith have more. There it is. And the 2nd most rushing, obviously, for LaDainian behind Emmitt.
Well, the 2 big plays of that last drive were clearly by Jason Allen. Here he is in double coverage and allows this little stop along the sideline to go. And then the pass interference down at the other end. You know, there's not much you can do as a defender. You just simply have to get your head around and take your chances. You get your head around, all that contact is inconsequential. You know, it doesn't get called. But if you leave your head facing the receiver and the receiver jumps back through you, every time.
Folk to kick off. Patrick Cobbs collects it at the 2-yard line. And Cobbs brings it out to the 32-yard line. So they have to navigate 68 yards in 1:48, and they have a pair of timeouts.
And I tell you what, Mark Sanchez now in back-to-back games has been absolutely brilliant. But for Chad Henne, here's an opportunity. You know, he wants to prove himself that, you know, all those quarterbacks since Dan Marino, he wants to prove that he's the guy that's going to be here for a while. You don't need to look any further if you're the Miami Dolphins. And here's a great way to prove it.
Going for 12 yards tonight. 23 out of 39. Coming across the line is Ellis and says that he was induced, and he was. Got to get Jerome to Radio Shack or something. Penalties on Vernon Carey.
Well, and now you've got issues. Now it's 1st and 15. At least that time, the Jets were out there with only 2 down linemen. Everybody else sort of milling around. You know at least 5 of them are coming. Let's see if you can pick out which 5. It's not easy.
1st and 15. They're going to start with Ronnie Brown. And against that pass defense, Brown's going to take it out to the 43-yard line. So now 57 yards away.
What a great call. It looked like an overload blitz to the left, run right.
90 seconds, 17-yard gain on a 1st and 15. Any time, throws, caught, 40-yard line, and that's Bess. And Bess got up to turn around.
Boy, you just wonder.
Yeah.
There was no whistle. I mean, there clearly was no whistle blown if Devon Bess gets up. Whether he was touched or not, it seems like he didn't fumble that ball.
41-yard line, 16-yard gain. 5 coming. Henny looked right. Now goes left. Catch is made. Marshall inside the 30, inside the 20. Taken down at the 7 by Brodney Poole. Broke away from a Cromartie tackle to begin with, and it's a 1st down. And they're going to spot the ball at the 10-yard line.
Brandon Marshall with a great catch and run, but then he gets a little help from his friend. Watch Anthony Fasano come flying down the field and just take out Eric Smith on the play. Goodness gracious. That was close.
Spotted just outside the 10. They can get a 1st down without getting a touchdown. They still have their 2 timeouts. The ball is at the 10 and a half. And Henny's going to throw a fade to the corner of the end zone with Marshall and Cromartie all night long. Incomplete. 2nd down.
Brandon Marshall saying he thought he got held on the play, but that was great coverage by Cromartie. You can see Cromartie's strategy now. He is going to take away the slant with his alignment. See how he has the inside eye? And then he's just going to play this fade. But unlike what we saw at the other end, Cromartie was looking back, found the ball, and was safe. But just get the feeling Brandon Marshall is going to be a factor the next few plays. But now they might have some safety help coming this way, and they do.
Marshall bottom of the screen now. 2nd and 10. Henny. Time, but the coverage is great, and they'll take him down at the 9-yard line, and he says, give me that timeout right now with 42 seconds.
Well, I tell you what, if Chad Henne had taken off and run to the right, he might still be running. He just kind of panicked. The protection was there. He had time to look around, and as the back finally comes out to the right, Bart Scott turns his back, and there was just nobody there. Brandon Marshall might be a little exhausted at this point because after that long run, he just doesn't seem to be quite as quick. They did have safety help to his side.
Clearly in a 4-down situation. It's 3rd and 9, 9.5 for the touchdown. Sanchez 256 yards tonight, and Henny 358 yards on 25 out of 42.
This is a Rex Ryan blitz down, but to do that, you have to play single coverage on Brandon Marshall. Will he be willing to do that?
Cromartie is on Marshall at the bottom of the screen. 3rd and 9. He goes the other way to Brown, and Brown's going to get taken down inbounds at the 6-yard line, and that will compel Miami to use its final timeout.
Well, Brandon Marshall has changed the way that Rex Ryan is calling this game. Usually in this situation, you end up getting some kind of pressure. This time, a 2-man rush was all they had, dropped everybody in coverage, and there were plenty of guys around Brandon Marshall. On the outside, Cromartie is sitting out there. They had safety help over the top, and I don't care. I would tell Brandon Marshall, you go get down to the end line. I'm going to throw you a high fastball and do your best Dwight Clark imitation.
Or a high changeup.
Yeah.
Give him a chance. the Jets, as you can see, with Ryan going all the way down. Ryan to the 6-yard line. He wants a timeout. He wanted to see how the Dolphins were coming up on the play of the game here. And he takes a timeout.
Well, one of the things that surprised me right there was the fact that they didn't put Brandon Marshall in a position where he could go in motion. Remember, one of the goals they had for this game was to get Cromartie basically in something other than bump and run. So early on, they had some success putting him in motion, Brandon Marshall, and creating some separation there at the line of scrimmage. Now that they have a second to think about it, maybe they come back to that.
.34 seconds. Out of timeouts are the Dolphins. And here we go. With Marshall. Wide left. Hartline. Slot left. And Henne looking over the middle and throwing into traffic, and it's knocked away and picked off. Drew Coleman winds up with the football in the end zone, touchback. Anthony Fasano, the intended receiver, they try to jam it to the tight end. A big grin across the face of one Rex Ryan, as his Jets right now will go to 2-1.
Well, and it's a great play by Brodney Poole right here. Brodney Poole is right back here, and you're going to see they're going to try and do that same play they scored on earlier, just sort of post up rebound position. But Chad Henne misses it left just a little bit. If this is lower and more to the right, you probably get that rebound position, but Brodney Poole right there anticipating it. And they took Brandon Marshall away on every single play. They had double coverage every time, and for Rex Ryan, it was close, but they got it done.
But again, as you point out, you just got to take, I think, one shot at just throwing a fade, throw it up in the air, and let the 6'4" Marshall do what he can. They don't, and the Dolphins, with 2 road wins, come home and lose. And what a race this is going to be in the AFC East this season.
Where do you see this? A little role reversal coming here.
Oh, that's fabulous. That is great. Only Rex, the loosest of coaching cannons. Jets 31, Miami 23.